They tried to erase us, now we set the rules. HFY Sci-Fi stories. The universe had never been kind to humanity. For eons, Earth's people had struggled against overwhelming odds, wars, famines, betrayals, never fully realizing that the greatest threat came from beyond the stars. Alien empires, vast and merciless, saw humanity as little more than an inconvenience, a species too primitive to deserve a place in the cosmos. They tried to erase us, erase our kind from existence. At first, it seemed like we were simply another conquered species, doomed to extinction, a footnote in the galaxy's history. The Car, a race of cold, calculating conquerors, were the first to attempt our annihilation. They unleashed their fleet on Earth, bombarding our cities, our culture, our history. Yet, there was one thing they hadn't counted on: the resilience of human spirit. We fought back. It was a desperate fight, not one of overwhelming power but of unyielding determination. Against their advanced technology and well-organized military, we were mere ants, but ants with the will to bite and the strength to sting. We weren't just fighting for survival, we were fighting for everything we had built, everything that made us human. And it was that very defiance, that refusal to bend, that turned the tide. One by one, alien empires began to realize that humanity couldn't be wiped out so easily. The Car tried to erase us, but in doing so, they awoke something within us. The loss of our homes, our families, the near destruction of our world. It ignited a fire we hadn't even known we possessed. For every battle they won, we learned, we adapted, we fought smarter, harder. Humanity began to rise. The technology the aliens had used to cripple us became the foundation of our counteroffensive. We reverse-engineered their weaponry, modified their tactics, and infiltrated their communication networks. When the final war came, when it was clear that the Car had underestimated us, it was their turn to fall. And fall they did. Their once proud fleet broken and shattered, their leaders defeated by their own arrogance. But we didn't stop there. Once the dust settled and the stars that had once shone as symbols of alien dominance were now our new battlegrounds, we took our place among the stars, not as survivors, but as rulers. We had earned it. Humanity became the force to be reckoned with in the galaxy. The Car were forced to sign treaties, pledging to never again interfere with Earth. But we didn't just negotiate peace. We set the rules. The United Earth Federation expanded across the stars, bringing with it a new era of civilization, one built on the values we held dear: freedom, justice, and resilience. We established our own galactic council, inviting all species who wished to coexist with us. But the terms were clear: follow our laws, or face the consequences. No longer would we be the pawns in another empire's game. The galaxy now understood. Humanity had not only survived their attempts to erase us, we had become the ones who decided the fate of others. And the universe would never forget that lesson. The Car learned it the hard way, and the rest of the galaxy quickly followed suit. Humanity set the rules now. And those rules? They were simple. Respect human sovereignty. No species will enslave another. Honor our alliances, or face annihilation. In time, those rules became the foundation of a new galactic order. Peace was achieved, but not through submission, through strength, through unity, and through the unrelenting will of humankind. The universe would remember the day humanity turned the tide. The day we went from being erased to being the ones who called the shots. We had become the rule makers. And we would never be erased again. They tried to erase us, now we set the rules. HFY Sci-Fi stories continued. The dawn of the new era was a time of swift transformation. The human race had not only reclaimed its place in the stars, but had begun to reshape the galaxy according to its own terms. The United Earth Federation, once a fragile alliance of nations on a single planet, had become the backbone of a sprawling galactic empire. The Federation's influence stretched across countless star systems, its fleets patrolling vast expanses of space. The military, once a scattered force of human nations, had unified under a single banner. A powerful and relentless fighting force capable of projecting human might across the galaxy. The enemies we had once struggled against now trembled at the very thought of defying humanity. The Car, now relegated to the fringes of known space, were forced to live by the laws we set. Their once proud fleets were dismantled, their leaders exiled to distant colonies where they could no longer threaten the peace. But it wasn't just them we had to worry about. Other empires, less aggressive, but just as imperialistic, watched with wary eyes, seeing our rise not as a victory for humanity, but a challenge to their own dominion. But we had a new philosophy now. The Federation wasn't about domination, it was about balance. We recognized the need for peace, but also the need for strength to uphold it. To truly shape the galaxy, we needed allies, and to have allies, we needed to show we could be trusted. And so, the Council of the Galactic Commonwealth was born. At the center of the council was the United Earth Federation, but it wasn't a dictatorship. Every sentient species with a desire to join the Commonwealth had a voice. In a stunning turn of events, former enemies became allies. Species that had once viewed humans as insignificant or weak now saw us as the force of unshakable determination, the cornerstone of a new order in the universe. The galaxy had learned that if you wanted peace, you had to follow the rules, human rules, and those rules were forged in the fires of survival, tempered by the cold realities of war, and now, firmly set by those who had endured the most. The key to maintaining peace was not just strength, but a system that valued justice and order over blind expansionism. In the first few decades after the Car War, the galaxy shifted. No longer would races wage war for resources or control. The United Earth Federation ensured that trade routes were safe and fair, that borders were respected, and that any species caught violating the galactic code would face swift and decisive action. Those who had once seen humanity as weak now acknowledged our unparalleled capacity for both diplomacy and destruction. Of course, not all species welcomed this shift. A group of radical separatists, a once dominant race called the HFY, rejected the Commonwealth's idea of cooperation. Their xenophobic zealotry led them to attack human colonies on the outskirts of Federation space, believing they could reclaim their former glory by striking at the heart of humanity's influence. Big mistake. The HFY had not counted on the full force of the Federation's military might. Within weeks, their fleets were crippled, their leaders captured. They were given a simple ultimatum: join the Commonwealth or be erased. To their credit, the HFY chose peace. Their new leaders agreed to abide by the Federation's laws, and in a surprising turn, they even offered their technology to help strengthen our mutual defense systems. But the message had been sent: anyone who tried to stand against humanity would face the full wrath of the United Earth Federation. Peace, now truly universal, was no longer the quiet, fragile state it had once been. The Federation was its enforcer, its protector, and humanity was the backbone of it all. The new era wasn't one of endless conflict. It was a time of innovation, exploration, and collaboration. Humanity, no longer a victim, had become the stewards of the stars. We forged alliances, built colonies on distant worlds, and became the vanguard of a new, flourishing age of interstellar cooperation. And though our ships now sailed through the cosmos, gliding past the great galactic capitals and vast, uncharted nebulae, the message remained the same. They tried to erase us. But now, we set the rules. And the galaxy would bend to humanity's will. As the Federation's influence expanded, one thing became abundantly clear: we were no longer just survivors. We were creators of destiny. Every new species we encountered, every new world we discovered, added to our story. The galaxy had not seen a force like humanity, and soon, even the most powerful empires would learn to thrive in the new galactic order. You didn't just need strength. You needed humanity's resolve. They tried to erase us, now we set the rules. HFY Sci-Fi Stories continued. Years passed since the formation of the Galactic Commonwealth, and the galaxy, once fractured by conflict, was now united under the ironclad laws humanity had set. But peace is fragile, and the more you have to lose, the harder it becomes to protect it. For all our success, there were still pockets of resistance, factions that saw our rise as a threat to their way of life, ones that saw us as tyrants rather than protectors. One such faction was the Valkyrie Dominion, a coalition of fierce warrior races that had dominated their sector of space for centuries. They had watched humanity's rise from the shadows, observing our war efforts against the Car, and saw the United Earth Federation as an affront to their supremacy. To them, we were interlopers, upstarts who had no place in the star-strewn halls of power. For years, they bided their time, growing stronger, amassing resources and fleets, building their influence in the darkest corners of the galaxy. And when the time came, they struck. In the dead of night, without warning, a fleet of Valkyrie warships, massive and formidable, entered Federation space. They attacked our colonies, striking with a precision that sent shockwaves through our borders. They had calculated every move, predicted every counter. Their first strike was devastating, crippling communication channels, disrupting key supply routes, and slaughtering thousands. But they had underestimated one thing: humanity's ability to adapt. The Federation's response was swift and calculated. Within hours, the full might of the Federation's military mobilized. What they didn't expect was the sheer speed with which our forces countered their strike. Human ingenuity, fueled by years of reverse engineering, relentless research, and sheer necessity, had made us more than just conquerors. We were innovators. And when war was brought to our doorstep, we didn't fight like we had in the past. We fought smarter. Humanity's fleet had developed new technologies, ones the Valkyrie hadn't anticipated. Adaptive armor that could change its structure in real time, weapons that disrupted the energy signatures of enemy ships, and drones capable of operating in hostile environments without direct command, all innovations that tilted the battlefield in our favor. Even the Valkyrie's once dominant war tactics couldn't keep up. But the Valkyrie were not the type to surrender easily. They fought with unmatched ferocity, unwilling to accept a universe where their dominion could be threatened by a young species. Yet, with every battle they fought, they learned more of our ways. They came to realize that humanity wasn't just winning by strength or strategy alone. We were relentless. Every time they thought they had an advantage, we turned the tables. Every time they thought they could break our will, we showed them that there was nothing we wouldn't sacrifice to protect what was ours. The war dragged on for years, with both sides suffering losses. But in the end, humanity's resolve won. The Valkyrie Dominion, once a vast and terrifying empire, was forced to surrender. Their leaders, proud and defiant to the end, were brought before the Galactic Council, our council. And here, the rules were set. We did not destroy them, as we might have in the past, or erase their existence entirely. Instead, we did something far more profound. We offered them a chance to coexist, on humanity's terms. Their fleets were dismantled, their weapons were turned to peaceful purposes, and their people, now stripped of their old ways, were welcomed into the Commonwealth, but only under strict conditions. The Valkyrie, once conquerors, were now learners. They were forced to adapt to the rules we had laid down, or face complete eradication. They had been given a second chance, but it came at a cost. The galaxy saw this, and the message was clear. The United Earth Federation had not only won the war, we had reshaped the very fabric of how the galaxy operated. Through diplomacy, strength, and unparalleled ingenuity, humanity was no longer a mere player in the galaxy's great game. We were its architect. As time passed, the Valkyrie Dominion became a case study, a symbol of humanity's power, not just to destroy, but to uplift, to transform. Many other species, once wary of humanity's power, began to rethink their positions. Some, like the Xenthos, a race of telepathic beings who had kept to themselves for millennia, sought to understand the human experience. Others, like the ZRYXX, now true allies, helped bolster the Federation's defenses. More and more, the galaxy began to see that the United Earth Federation was not merely a force for war, but a beacon of order and prosperity. To thrive in this new era, every species would have to learn that the old ways of conquest, oppression, and endless war were no longer acceptable. The rules had changed. And, once again, humanity had set those rules. The galaxy was at peace, though fragile, though ever-changing. Yet, no longer did the stars belong to the old empires. No longer did they belong to the conquerors or the tyrants. They belonged to us, the survivors, the innovators, the ones who refused to be erased. We had not only learned to survive, we had learned to lead. And we would not be swept aside again. The universe had learned that lesson, and they would never forget it. Because now, humanity did not just play the game, we defined it. The next chapter of humanity's legacy had begun, and as the Federation's reach expanded, there were whispers among the stars, whispers of a future where the rules would be set not by the strongest, but by those with the resolve to protect what was rightfully theirs. The galaxy had learned, and so had humanity. We would never be erased. They tried to erase us, now we set the rules. HFY Sci-Fi Stories, continued. The story of humanity's rise spread across the galaxy like wildfire. It wasn't just the defeated alien species that talked about us, our influence reached far beyond the battlefield. It was the way we governed, the way we led with a firm but just hand, the way we operated in both peace and war that garnered attention. Humanity was no longer just a single race or species. We had become the foundation of a galactic order that was larger than any one planet, larger than any one empire. The United Earth Federation, now a powerful and respected force, began to mold its own allies into something greater than ever before. But, as with all things in power, this came with challenges. There were factions within the Federation that began to test the boundaries we had set. Some, driven by the same ambitions that had brought down the old empires, sought to expand beyond the peaceful coexistence that humanity had crafted. The idea of taking control of distant systems for resources, of waging war to eliminate potential threats before they arose, began to whisper among the corridors of power. It was a dangerous idea. It was the very thing that had nearly destroyed us in the past, the notion that might made right. And for the first time since our rise, we had to look within. Could we continue to maintain the moral high ground in a universe so full of ambition and greed? Could we keep humanity from falling into the same traps that had claimed the empires of old? The answer came when a new, unknown species began to move into Federation space, seemingly out of nowhere. They called themselves the Nine Kari, a race whose intelligence was as vast as the void itself. At first, the Nine Kari didn't engage in any kind of violence. They were silent observers, offering little more than cryptic communications. But soon, their intentions became clear. They demanded resources we had taken years to settle, to cultivate. They had no interest in peaceful negotiation. They wanted what was ours. At first, the Federation tried diplomacy. We sent our best emissaries, our wisest leaders, but the Nine Kari were unyielding. They used knowledge and power in ways we had never encountered. Their ships could phase in and out of time itself, and their technology seemed beyond anything we had ever seen. The tactics they employed made our most advanced weaponry seem like mere toys. When we countered, they adapted. When we outsmarted them, they learned faster. The galaxy watched as the United Earth Federation seemed to stumble. Was humanity truly as invincible as it seemed? Were we capable of facing this new unknown without losing everything we had built? This challenge brought humanity to a crossroads. It became clear that the Nine Kari would not stop until we surrendered. They offered us a simple choice: give up control of the systems we had so carefully nurtured, or face annihilation. The whispers of those who wanted to expand, to take what was ours through force, grew louder. This was the moment they had been waiting for, to show the galaxy that might did make right. But we did not choose that path. Instead, humanity did what it had done best since the beginning: we adapted. We learned. We became the solution. We spent months in seclusion, bringing together our brightest minds and military leaders. We worked with alien species that had joined the Commonwealth, species that had long known the importance of peace and fairness. And then, we unveiled our plan. Instead of simply fighting with brute force, humanity used the one thing the Nine Kari had overlooked: our creativity. We took their technology, adapting it, improving it, twisting it in ways they hadn't anticipated. We used their own weapons against them, bending their phasing technology into something that disrupted their ship's ability to phase in and out of time. But even more than that, we didn't just fight on the battlefield. We fought intellectually. We took on their cryptic, almost impenetrable communication methods, deciphering their patterns, understanding their language, their thought process. We challenged their very worldview, forcing them to question their own methods of thinking. The battle wasn't just for territory, it was a war of ideas, of willpower, of who could outlast the other. And humanity had something the Nine Kari didn't: a desire to preserve what was ours and the will to fight for it, no matter the cost. In the end, the Nine Kari were forced to retreat. Their empire, once towering and seemingly invincible, crumbled beneath the weight of humanity's ingenuity and resolve. They were given a choice: join the Commonwealth and learn the values of cooperation, or be ostracized from the galaxy. The message was sent across the stars: humanity would not be erased. Not by force, not by trickery, not by any other means. We set the rules, and those who defied them would learn quickly that humanity did not back down. The 9 Kari, humbled and defeated, agreed to join the Galactic Commonwealth, not as conquerors but as learners, as partners in a new age of cooperation. Their technology, once a symbol of invincibility, was now shared with humanity and its allies. They were not punished, they were transformed, just as humanity had been when the Kar first sought to erase us. And so, peace prevailed once more. The galaxy, now more interconnected than ever, stood in awe of humanity's strength, not the strength of our armies or our weapons, but the strength of our spirit, our creativity, our refusal to bend in the face of overwhelming odds. We had not just survived the greatest threats, we had faced them and shaped the future, not through domination, but through unity, intelligence, and resolve. Humanity was no longer just a force to be reckoned with, we were the foundation of a new era, one where the rules we set would be the guiding force for generations to come. And the galaxy knew it, we would never be erased again. Because now, we defined the rules. They tried to erase us, now we set the rules. HFY Sci-Fi Stories continued. The rise of humanity in the galaxy had long been a story of resilience, innovation, and unyielding will. The 9 Kari defeat was yet another testament to humanity's ingenuity, but the consequences of that victory rippled across the stars. There were whispers of a larger shift in the balance of power. Some species, once neutral or even indifferent to humanity's ascension, began to look at the Federation with new eyes. They no longer viewed us simply as survivors. They saw us as the architects of the galaxy's future. As the Federation solidified its dominance, the tides of history began to pull in new directions. The human spirit, once confined to a single planet, was now spread across countless worlds. Humanity had built an empire, not on the backs of the conquered, but through alliances, diplomacy, and mutual respect for the rule of law. But not all species were willing to live under these new conditions. There were still those who preferred the old ways, those who believed that power and domination were the only true paths to security and greatness. The Maori, a race of towering, armored giants, were one such species. Their empire had flourished for millennia through conquest, and they viewed any system of cooperation or democracy as a weakness. For them, the idea that humanity could command the galaxy and maintain a peace without fear of retribution was a direct challenge to everything they stood for. Their leader, Emperor Talgor, issued an ultimatum to the Federation: bow before the might of the Maori, or face extinction. The message was clear: they sought to return the galaxy to a state of fear, where only the strongest would rule. The Maori were strong, yes, but they had forgotten one fundamental truth: the galaxy had already seen the cost of such an approach. Humanity, ever adaptable, did not respond with threats or posturing. Instead, we did what we always did when confronted with a challenge: we learned. We studied the Maori, their culture, their strengths, and most importantly, their weaknesses. We understood that brute force alone would never solve this conflict. It was never about fighting power with power, it was about proving that might did not make right. The Federation's response was not to meet force with force, but to show the galaxy a new path forward. A series of diplomatic missions were launched, not to placate the Maori, but to expose the flaws in their reasoning. The emissaries spoke not with the arrogance of conquerors, but with the calm resolve of those who had seen the destructive forces of power unchecked. The message was simple: we did not rise by fear, we did not rise through conquest, we rose because we chose another way, a way of unity, of understanding, of respect for life. The Maori scoffed at first, dismissing the Federation's peace talks as weak, naively idealistic. But as negotiations wore on, cracks began to show. The Maori's own people, once united by the singular purpose of domination, began to ask questions. The new generations, raised in a galaxy that didn't just survive but thrived under the Federation's guidance, were torn. They saw the strength in unity, in cooperation, and began to question the war-torn ways of their ancestors. In the end, humanity didn't force the Maori to submit. Instead, we showed them that the old ways were not the only way to rule. We didn't need to destroy their empire or enslave them. We showed them how to build something better, a future where power was used not to crush, but to uplift, where resources were shared, not hoarded, where civilizations could grow through collaboration, not fear. It wasn't an easy victory, but it was a lasting one. The Maori eventually became part of the Galactic Commonwealth, not as a subjugated species, but as partners. Their military might, once a symbol of oppression, was now a force used to maintain peace across the galaxy, protecting the weak and ensuring that the laws of the Federation were upheld. It was another triumph for humanity, but it wasn't just about the victory, it was about the message it sent across the stars. Strength does not need to be wielded with an iron fist. It can be wielded through understanding, cooperation, and respect for the greater good. The galaxy had learned yet again that humanity was not merely about survival, it was about creating a new way forward, a way that everyone, from the smallest species to the mightiest empire, could be a part of. But even as the Federation expanded its reach, even as we brought more worlds into the fold, there were those who would always resist. The Xinther Collective, a mysterious and secretive race of beings with unfathomable intellect, saw the rise of humanity as an existential threat. Unlike the other species, they weren't motivated by power or resources. They feared the idea that the galaxy might one day be governed by something as unpredictable and chaotic as human thought. The Xinther saw order in silence, in the lack of change, in the constant and the unmoving. But humanity, ever the wild card in the galaxy, could never be controlled. Our species was too diverse, too unpredictable, too full of potential, and that, to the Xinther, was a threat they could not ignore. Yet, we did not shy away from this new challenge. We understood the Xinther's fears, even if we didn't agree with them. Our approach was always the same: diplomacy, adaptation, and communication. We didn't approach the Xinther as enemies. We approached them as students of their ways, as beings who respected their intellect, but who would not be bound by their cold, rigid view of the galaxy. We offered them something they had never seen before: a partnership in true diversity. The Xinther may have believed in order, but humanity believed in evolution. We showed them that the galaxy could be a place of endless discovery, not by restricting change, but by embracing it. Once again, the Federation didn't conquer. We did what we had always done: we offered a path forward, a way to grow together. Slowly, over time, the Xinther began to see that humanity's chaotic, diverse existence was not a threat, it was a chance to evolve in ways they had never imagined. And as the Xinther came to see the value in what we were building, they too joined the Galactic Commonwealth, now contributing their vast knowledge and intelligence to our collective future. And so, the galaxy moved forward, not as a collection of warring factions, but as a united civilization, bound by the simple but powerful idea that cooperation, not conquest, was the true path to strength. Humanity had risen not just to survive, but to shape the future. We had built a galaxy where strength was no longer a tool for oppression, but a force for growth. The rules we set were simple, but profound: unity through diversity, strength through cooperation, and the courage to adapt and evolve in the face of any challenge. The universe had tried to erase us. Now, humanity defined the very future of the stars. They tried to erase us, now we set the rules. HFY Sci-Fi Stories continued. As the years stretched on, the influence of humanity's example spread like ripples across the cosmic sea. The once dominant empires, the aggressive warlords, and the isolationist factions that had been part of the galaxy's violent past now looked on as humanity's peaceful, yet iron-willed, vision took hold. The concept of the Galactic Commonwealth was no longer just a fleeting idea, it had become a reality that many had come to admire and even emulate. But, as always, there were those who refused to accept this new order. The Rivek Syndicate, a group of pirate factions once feared throughout the galaxy for their lawlessness and brutal raids, had long operated outside the boundaries of the Federation's reach. They had seen the rise of humanity as an opportunity for their own empire of chaos, a chance to return to the old days where power came from fear and destruction. The Syndicate's leaders, known only in whispers as the Harbingers, believed the Federation was too soft, too peaceful to endure in a galaxy that still harbored darker, older forces. When the Rivek Syndicate declared war, it wasn't just on humanity, it was on the very idea of a unified galaxy. The Harbingers saw the Federation as a direct threat to their way of life, and they wanted to see it burn. This time, humanity was faced with a different kind of enemy. The Syndicate was not a unified front like the Valkyrie Dominion or the Nine Kari. It was a collection of thousands of disorganized, anarchic fleets and rogue armies. They thrived in chaos and had no central structure to target. They attacked from the shadows, using stealth, sabotage, and terror as their weapons. The Federation had to respond. But how? This would not be a war of fleets or planetary invasions. It would be a war of strategy, a war of ingenuity and resilience. Humanity had always faced challenges that others saw as insurmountable, and this would be no different. We couldn't rely solely on military force, we had to outsmart them. The first phase of the war was unexpected. Instead of charging into battle, humanity began a series of decoy operations, false signals, fake fleet movements, and calculated misinformation that made it nearly impossible for the Syndicate to predict our movements. We used the technology the Federation had developed, the same adaptive armor and deceptive sensors that had made humanity's fleets so formidable. But we also applied something far more subtle: psychological warfare. We knew the Syndicate's strength came from fear, from unpredictability. So, we began to change the rules of engagement. Fleet captains would make seemingly random moves that misled the Syndicate into attacking false targets. Colonies were relocated. Resources were shifted in ways that made their efforts to sabotage us futile. As the Syndicate's forces wasted time and energy fighting ghost targets, humanity used its best weapon, time. We also initiated an information campaign. In every corner of the galaxy, the Federation began spreading stories, not of our victories, but of the Syndicate's failures. Their raids on civilian ships were exposed, their tactics analyzed and found wanting. Humanity's message was clear: you cannot fight us with fear anymore. Soon, the Syndicate, once a fragmented collection of rogue factions, began to fragment even further. With their leadership broken and their forces confused, they lost their unifying cause. The Syndicate didn't stand a chance against the kind of strategy humanity had perfected. By using knowledge and deception as weapons, the Federation had once again proven that brains could defeat brawn. The final blow came not through a massive space battle or brutal invasion, but through a single, decisive strike. Humanity revealed to the Syndicate's leaders the truth about their situation. We infiltrated their communications networks, broadcasting to their soldiers the images of their own comrades' failed campaigns, their wasted resources, and the inevitable collapse of their empire. It wasn't just military defeat, it was a psychological collapse. One by one, the Syndicate's fleets disbanded, their leaders scattered, and their pirates turned on each other in a desperate scramble for power. The Harbingers, who had once held sway over the chaos of the galaxy, were left in ruins. But even as the war ended, humanity didn't gloat. We didn't celebrate the fall of the Rivik Syndicate with a display of power or dominance. Instead, we extended an offer of peace. Those Syndicate remnants that wanted to leave behind their old ways were given the chance to join the Federation, to rebuild their societies through cooperation rather than violence. And many, surprisingly, accepted. We didn't simply defeat the Syndicate, we changed the very nature of their conflict. No longer was their existence defined by fear and violence. Humanity had shown them that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, there was a place for peace, for growth, for change. With the Rivik Syndicate's collapse, another chapter of galactic history was written. The message humanity had sent was clear: the days of chaos, of empires rising through fear, were numbered. The future was one of cooperation, of mutual respect, and, perhaps most importantly, of the recognition that no matter how strong or how many, no one could stand alone in the galaxy forever. As the Federation's borders grew, the other species began to look at us not just as equals, but as the natural leaders of the galaxy. Our blend of innovation, resilience, and fairness had become the cornerstone of a new era, one where the rules of war and peace were no longer set by the strongest, but by those with the wisdom to lead. But, as always, new challenges arose, and not all threats were as easy to spot. The Federation had become a beacon for progress, and with progress came resistance. There were still factions out there, small, secretive, and dangerous, that sought to undo all the progress we had made. It wasn't over. The galaxy was always shifting, always changing, and the future was never certain. But one thing was clear: humanity had set the rules, and we would continue to shape the future, not with the might of weapons, But with the strength of our resolve, every challenge, every test of our will, would only make us stronger. Because, in the end, we were no longer the ones fighting to survive. We were the ones shaping the future. And the galaxy would never be the same again.